Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to this session of the Jim Bregman Invites You To series. Today, we have Nicole Stout, and we'll be introducing Jim and moving along, who was the USA's first Olympic medalist, a bronze medal, as was a bronze medalist at the World Championships in judo, has been a Pan American and national champion, and the president of the USJA several times. And right now, here is Sensei Bregman.
Well, thank you, Rob. It's a pleasure to have Nicole join our group. I have two international medals, a bronze medal at the Olympics and a bronze medal at the World Championships. But I am totally eclipsed by Nicole.
No.
Actually, Nicole, you have 21 international medals,
Oh, I didn't
gold,
know.
silver, and bronze. You have 14 national medals and you have 16 regional medals. So I would say that you are quite an accomplished athlete with a great deal of international experience. And we look forward to having you explain some of your experiences and how you avoid injuries while training in such a intense environment that involves full concentration and care of your own well-being.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
do you have do you have a few comments about any of that?
uh, I am no Olympian, so I still very much revere you and all of our other Olympians. I
Thank
am
you.
not quite there yet. We're trying to make it there though. That's the
You'll
goal.
get there. You'll get there.
Um, yeah, a lot of my kind of injury prevention stems from both a consistent supplementation of supplements that help curb injury and speed up recovery, like beta alanine by SR carnitine, and also um, before judo, I have a background in I was an elite gymnast in artistic and rhythmic gymnastics, and I did ballet for like so many years, like at least a decade. So a lot of the things I do to prevent injury are the kind of small muscle exercises that come from ballet and gymnastics, that background, which is kind of unique coming into judo.
That's very, very good. I did gymnastics as a young child also. I also did baton twirling and tap dancing. And the tap dancing actually was very beneficial later in developing some pretty strong ashiwaza.
That makes
So,
sense.
so how do you train?
Um, so basically, I do a lot of small, like stabilizer muscle type of exercises because the number one things you injure in judo are shoulders and knees. Like I've already had a knee surgery on my left knee, so it's super important to try to minimalize that as much as possible. Although kind of freak things happen all the time in judo, and it's
Mhm.
unavoidable. But if that's the only way you could get hurt, that's preferable. So it's a lot of like small movements that start to burn really quickly if you haven't done them in a while.
Okay. Could you show what are these small movements? I mean, I've
So like so for example, one of the things I pull a lot because at Jason's a lot of our techniques involve leaning, and that involves a lot of using the hip flexors. So you do a small kind of ballet exercise where you're lifting here, and it doesn't look like much, but it'll start to burn really quickly, you
mhm,
know. And then here, where you're leaning here and you're moving these too. So
side.
just like strengthening these like ligaments here, and then you
Mhm,
do them standing to like the back for Uchimata. So you're strengthening that. And then for your knees, it's a lot of, let's see, I'm not sure if I'll be in frame. Yeah, a little bit. It's a lot of here, and then you're like dipping. Whoop, there it is.
mhm.
So And then you'll be worse on one leg than the other because judo is very uneven often. So it's stuff like that. And then for shoulders, after practice, you put your butt like against the wall, and then you have your shoulders all the way back, and you put your hands all the way back, and then you work on stretching them up here, and then you do them laying down. You do at least 10, obviously. I'm just doing like 2 of everything, but where you're here, and then you're here, and then you're bringing it forward. So just like different ways to work those small muscles that often get neglected because judo is kind of a big muscle sport. So it's not as, I mean, some moves are really intricate, but for the most part, it's, you know, your hamstrings, your thighs, like really big kind of power muscles. So if the little balancing kind of muscles aren't as good or as strong as the big ones, then you're really likely to kind of get injured because those are the things holding your ligaments in place.
Okay, and do you do those every day before practice?
I do them, I normally do them after practice.
After practice?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
before practice normally is stretching.
Okay, what kind of stretching exercises do you prefer?
So my stretching tends to be a little bit more drastic than what a lot of people can do because I have a background in rhythmic, which is probably one of the most flexible sports out there. So it's because I can easily do a split. So it's normally I have like a chair, and you put your heel on the chair, and then you're sitting down into a split, and then, you know, when you're rotating, you're, you know, it's just like all the different splits. And in rhythmic, we always use a chair because you can use a chair for anything, any stretch, which was fantastic. So when you do a split to the back, you would put chair in the front, then you take the chair and you put it in the back, and you put your knee up so that you're stretching these muscles too. And then you have to stretch your back, and that involves either bridges, or it's kind of hard to demonstrate. I don't really have like a solid wall, but you stand up and then you kind of go all the way back and you climb down the wall.
So you're doing a back bend from a standing position.
Yes, and then you climb down into a bridge. And then you climb all the way back up again. But again, this is like far more drastic than anybody else generally needs to do. It's just anything less than that won't be stretching for me. But and then like butterflies, which aren't really a problem for me, so I just kind of bend all the way down. You know, so which is also helpful because you need flexible hips in judo.
Okay, and that will eliminate a lot of hip degeneration over time. If you do that forward butterfly motion.
Yeah, the more flexible you're able to keep yourself, the older you get, the less problems you tend to have.
Okay. Is there a particular sequence you do these in?
So the easiest way to remember to do everything is I start from the bottom to the top. So I do my, let's see how I'm trying to like, there we go. So I do like my toes first. So that's simple, you know, manually stretching them here. And then I'm like, okay, now I need to stretch my calves. So those are here, you know, and then you can do them like against the wall where you're kind of like stretching. And then you would stretch your thighs. So if you're just doing a simple one, it's just here. You know what I mean? So you just work your way up until you're all the way up, stretching your arms, stretching your neck, all of that. So that's a really easy way. You can go either way, but I prefer down to up. So that's how I remember to stretch everything.
And you do that after practice?
Normally before I do active stretching.
That active stretching is before.
Yeah. Because you don't want to do static. Because there's a difference between active stretching and static stretching. Static is just like sitting there and like holding it. But there's like studies that show that if you do static stretching, you actually have a decrease in the amount of power you could put through those muscles for the next 30 minutes. So you want to do active stretching, which is like active, like where you're moving.
You're moving.
Yeah. So that's the difference between active and static. So you want to do active so you're nice and loose, but you're not losing any kind of power. And then you do like the little exercises. I do them after practice, and then you would do static stretching after, where you just like calming down after randori or whatever it is, and you're just like stretching really slowly. Then it's fine.
Okay, that's like a cool down.
Yeah.
kind of situation.
Yeah.
What do you do as far as weight training goes? Do you train with weights to build muscle?
Constantly.
Okay, and
I
what?
fight big women, so I have to be really strong.
Okay, and what are some of your weight training routines?
So I weight lift every other day, so that normally comes out to either 3 or 4 times a week. And I weight lift for about anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, so not super, super long. Mostly what I do are Olympic lifts. So I do a lot of clean and jerk. I do these are called like overhead presses.
Mhm.
And then lots of bench, incline, front and back squat, low rows. I did these today. I'm like trying to think of what I did today.
Mhm.
Uh, just like I try to do everything. I have this really cool app. Um, it's called Fitbod, and it's like an AI where you program it what exercises you want to do that covers, and it shows you like what muscles you're covering, so that way I can cover everything. And then it keeps track of well, your weights, how long you exercise, and also like the how much you worked out those muscles, so that way if you're working out like the day after and you just did a PR on bench, it doesn't give you bench again because like, oh well, or anything involving those muscles because they should be fatigued. So it's really cool. I love it. It's a really good app. I've used it
Okay.
now for the last like year and it's fantastic.
Do you use an Olympic bar,
Oh yeah.
Olympic
I use the
Olympic
men's Olympic
weights,
bar.
the
Yeah.
men's Olympic bar?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't, yeah, because it's a 45-pound bar.
right.
So yeah, that's the one I use. Yeah. I lift a lot. My body is made for I'm like almost all fast twitch muscles, so my cardio struggles, but I can lift a lot of weight really quickly. So that's like my
Okay,
forte.
and how far do you go down on a squat
I
with an
don't let
Olympic
my
bar on your back?
yeah, I have an Olympic bar on my back. And I try to go parallel because I don't want my knees to go over my toes because then that starts
Right.
wearing down on the ligaments in my knees. But then there is no point to me doing a quarter or half squat either. So I want my thigh to be completely parallel. That's the goal. So I have like a mirror where I look and I check and make sure. And it's
Okay,
not all just like a narcissism thing.
right, and for those that are training with weights, I think it's very important not to go below 45 degrees
Yeah, no.
when you're doing an Olympic bar squat for
Yeah.
if you're a judoka. And
Yeah.
I think that using the mirror when you're lifting, I find that extremely beneficial. It's not necessarily narcissistic, but uh, it gives you the ability to make sure your body posture is correct.
Right.
So, do you find the same thing?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I always try to train with like a mirror when I'm lifting because that mirror substitutes, a personal trainer saying, "Hey, you went too far or you need to go farther."
Mhm.
That we can't always afford a personal trainer to just show up and be like, "All right, let's go." So you have to do it yourself. So you have to be able to watch and be like, "Oh, that's too far. I think I'm going parallel, but I'm nowhere near. So I got to
Right.
go."
Right.
So yeah, it's essential, I think.
What about curls and bicep
Yeah.
tricep development? How do you do
Yeah.
that?
Dumbbells. Yeah,
Okay.
so just like there's like so many different exercises it makes me do with dumbbells, and I'm very lucky that the home gym I have access to is like got a nice spread of dumbbells. Now I still haven't like gotten super far up dumbbells. Um, there are other people that use them. A lot of the men in our club are like, yeah, 70 pounds, but I can't. I think the
Right.
farthest I've gotten up the chain was like 45. So,
Okay.
I don't need a huge selection, but these hammer, these, I don't remember the name of any of these. I
That's
promise I
okay.
normally
Just
do.
show
And
them.
then,
Right.
when you have them behind your head and you hear.
Right.
So I do a lot of those. Yeah, just like there's just so many. My app just tells me what to do. I just tell it to give me everything.
Okay. And typically, what level of weight do you use when you're doing tricep and bicep development?
So today when I was doing curls, I mean, it depends on the reps. the most I can do in a curl is 45 in one arm. But generally it makes me train 80 to 85% of my max in terms of rep, so that way when I go to max again, hopefully it's higher. So I'm normally working with like 25 or 30, lots and lots of reps. And then it'll test me for PRs. It averages about like once a month for everything.
So about how many reps does it recommend you do?
That also cycles, but like today I did 5 sets of 10 on each arm.
5 sets of 10. Okay.
Yeah. So 5 sets of 10 of like 30 pounds. So you're just like 30 and you're just going, okay, 1, 2, and you're counting to 20 because you need to do 10 on each.
Okay. Yeah. And what about with squats? How many squats?
I do a lot of weight in squats.
What is the weight level and how many reps?
So yesterday, which is why I'm still sore, I did 5 sets, 3 reps at 365.
Whoa.
Yeah, I do a lot of weight. The most annoying part is honestly loading and unloading the bar because I hate carrying like all the 45s because they're very unwieldy to me.
Right, that's great lifting in itself.
Oh yeah, it's I hate it. I wish I was like super rich so I could have someone just like load it, unload it for me, which is like super stupid, but I don't like it.
Right. Well, that is sometimes difficult.
Yeah.
Do you do bridging exercises?
Oh yeah, I do sometimes I do it with the bar, but it sometimes kind of cuts into my hip bones here. So whenever if I don't have access to a gym, so sometimes when I travel, you can set it to just body weight exercises. So I normally do about like twice as many body weight exercises because otherwise I'm paranoid I'm not working out as much when I don't have weights. But normally it gives me these where I'm here and then I have to go here and I'm either holding it or I'm doing reps, or it'll have me do one-legged, which are even harder.
Okay, and you have a barbell across your torso.
Yeah, so when I have weights available to me, I have a 45-pound bar, which is very uncomfortable, right here. And, it's not a lot of weight that I do. It's actually quite hard to do a lot of weight here. But it's great because this is the same muscles you use when you're like trying to shrimp out or trying to push somebody off. So.
Right. Well, that's very good. Do you have any other particular weight training moves that you do for a particular technique that you have?
So I don't always have like access to it, but in some gyms I have I don't even know the name of the machine, but it has like it's really hard to describe, but it's like a bar like this, and then it has like a cushion, and then you can push it up that way. Right. That makes sense. So, but you can use it for your legs. So I've done it where it works out like kind of this area. Right. And if you stand there and use it, you can use it for like Hani or Uchimata. So you're just practicing like going with that machine, but it's really rare I can get my hands on that kind of machine because for some reason a lot of gyms don't have it. So that's one that I do specifically. Anything where I'm training this muscle in the front is great for Osoto. I do straight-legged deadlifts for my hamstrings because when I repaired my ACL, they took a piece of my hamstring to act as my brand new ACL, but that also means that I have like a weakened hamstring. So I'm constantly working on those so that they can catch up a little bit.
Okay, could you show that exercise?
So we're going to pretend I have a bar here. Sure. And you're just going down and just coming straight up. You can go down as much as you want. And you can do a decent amount of weight, not nearly as much as a regular deadlift, but I probably do like about body weight. And it's all the work is in your hamstrings.
Okay.
So you're just here. So that helps. I do that specifically because I need it.
Right. And you find that helpful for being supple and being able to do Araigoshi or Uchimata,
Yeah, for me,
Hanagoshi,
Osoto specifically, because
Osoto.
I'm a lefty, so a
Hmm.
lot of my Osotos are reaching.
Hmm.
So I have to like reach and then kind of bring them to me. And this
Okay.
is the knee that got injured and the hamstring that got, taken apart. So it's like
Okay.
I need this hamstring to be really, really strong in order to pull them to me because it's, half a hamstring.
Okay. What are your favorite techniques?
Uchimata. Yeah, for sure. It's just really
Okay.
pretty. It's awesome. It feels great when you throw it. But
And what
yeah.
what methodologies do you use to execute your Uchimata?
Um, so it's fun because I feel like I keep having to almost relearn Uchimata because it's so intricate and there's so many different variations and I want to have I'm very picky in that because of my background in ballet and gymnastics, I'm like, oh, I want it to be perfect technically. Like tell me what I'm doing wrong so I'm doing everything right. So it's, you know, um learning that because normally when you learn like you can see my feet here, but that's actually a lot harder than it needs to be. So I actually do my Uchimata here because this like tends to lead to dog, kind of like the dog pee
Right.
position.
Right.
So this keeps your hip closed. That
Okay.
way you're here.
Okay.
Um, and then another part that I always try to remember is when I enter, it's not just here because then you don't have any like momentum. So the hard the hard part is like a lean. So when you're going in, you have to lean in. So that way you have a kind of spring to go forward that you're not getting with the crossed legs. So it's like a whole process of making sure that your legs are here and then this is tight, which because Uchimata for me is a very kind of technical throw.
Well, it is. And when you say you want this as tight, can you explain a little bit about your hand motion to make your upper body tight to your opponents?
So I learned that so a lot of coaches say, look at the watch. Apparently you don't do that. So because this is really hard. Like it's hard to, be strong when your arm is out here. So it's a lot easier if it's close to your body. So generally I am trying to hold them as close as I can. So you're
Hmm.
out, you're keeping them out, and then when you want to throw, you collapse in and you're
Okay.
leaning. So this is here.
Hmm.
So you try to not keep your elbows flared out because that takes away a lot of strength. And then this is just lapel grabbing by the collarbone or a nice high grip without sticking your thumb in the collar. So you want to kind
Hmm.
of grab like a meaty part, like the
Hmm.
back of the shoulder. And then this is here. And then you're holding it as tight as you can while your legs do the rest of the work. And then the number one thing is not letting your shoulders get turned because that's how you get
Hmm.
countered.
Hmm.
They do the Uchimata Tsukashi and
Hmm.
then I get turned. So I'm not going to do all that work for nothing. So this is super important to kind of keep here and make sure your shoulders are constantly turned towards where you want to throw them.
Okay. And
Oh,
does
and then
your
your nose goes to your knee. I got to remember that too, because if your nose, you have to have your nose follow your bottom knee, because then otherwise, for some reason, because of my ballet background, I want to like arch my back, which ruins the throw. So that's a good way to remember to kind of keep everything in place, which is really hard because your body wants to do weird things all the time.
uh okay. And then what role does your lift leg play?
um, Basically, it probably has like the least worrisome job because I kind of fix the feet. I don't have to worry about it as much.
Hmm.
So, as I just make sure that my hip doesn't turn out because that means that my shoulders are also turning out because your
Okay.
body follows itself. So, you keep your hip closed. So, you keep your, you know, it's not like out, it's down.
Hmm.
And then keep your leg a little bent so that you're catching their leg because if it's completely straight, that's not going to be as easy to kind of grab them and pull them over. But honestly, it has the easiest job. Like it's kind of set up for success as long as you start
Okay.
right.
Do you shoot um, for your hip to play an action, an active role in the Uchimata?
Mm, yeah, because that makes it carrying them easier. Having your leg do all the work is very hard.
Hmm.
So that's a benefit in like pulling them really close and leaning, is that your hip is already there and it should be kind of up against them already. So then the leg again has like a super easy roll, because this is like we just making it look really pretty, and then your hip and your arms are kind of doing all the work.
Okay, so would you say that your upper body motion and your hip action is similar to a surikomi goshi?
Yeah, a little
Okay.
bit. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, that makes sense.
Uh-huh. And then as you roll, your leg simply finishes the throw.
Oh yeah, and it's
Do
great
you,
because if you know you got to epone, you can. I kick my leg as high as I can go because it makes for a great picture.
okay. And you makikomi?
Oh yeah, yeah, because
Uh,
like I don't want to stay standing because I can't guarantee they'll fall on their back.
okay, so when you finish your throw, you're in a makikomi. Do you instantly go into newaza?
Oh yeah, every time.
Okay, and
Yeah,
what?
I mean that's the goal.
Okay, that's the goal. So
Yeah,
you throw to pin and pin to win.
yeah, basically, for sure. If
Okay,
it's not an epone, I'm gonna finish it anyway.
all right, and you finish it with what kind of technique?
So it tends to be the position I'm in tends to lend itself. So I'm in my favorite pin where I'm here and I grab my own. I have their wow, I'm blanking on the name of the pin too.
Kesagatame.
Yeah, Kesa. So instead of just here,
Mm-hmm.
I like grabbing my own leg and
Okay,
like kind of pinning it in so that they can't move away. And
right.
then holding their arm obviously as tight as you can and then head to the floor. That
Okay,
just makes it nice and easy. And then just
and
holding it.
what does your right leg do?
It's just crossed behind me. So
All
my
right.
legs are in like a S pattern and then I'm just
Okay.
holding them. So that
All
way
right.
this can have like if they start moving, I have options here.
All right.
So I can either move here or I can move here, depending on if they're like really strong and moving. Then I'm like, oh, hold on, I need to move.
Mm-hmm.
So that it stays back there, but it's still active.
Okay. So it's ready to go either
Right.
direction.
If I need to.
All right. Worst case scenario, what happens if you don't move the person when you enter Uchimata?
Well, you don't like, this is a bad habit for me. But what you're not supposed to do is if you enter Uchimata and go, oh crap, it's a brick wall, you don't step back out because that's the perfect timing for them to throw you. So you just try something else. Or
Okay.
what I do, if I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna throw this person and I'm in a bad position, you just hunker down and so your legs should be between their legs. So I kind of grapevine their leg, the close one, and then you just sit there and you wait and you see what they're gonna do. And then if they lean forward, you go for another Uchibata. If they lean back, you go for Ouchi. And
Okay.
then if they do nothing, you do nothing. You just stand there and you don't get thrown.
Okay. Do you ever come out with a Kochigari?
I have, but it's kind of rare because they because normally that foot, the one I would coach Gari doesn't come forward unless they're gonna lift me.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to lift me, I have to keep this one entwined in order to not get thrown back
For the
because this
Och
is my anchor.
for the
Right.
Ochigari. Right.
Right. Because that's where this is being held. So if I let go, I risk being thrown. But if it's one of those things where they try to pick me up and put me back down and the leg is available, then I would let go and grab it because I'm not in danger anymore.
Right.
So this is like my saving grace right here. It doesn't let go unless I'm safe.
Right. Okay, so that Uchimata is your major technique. What would be
Yeah.
your next? What? How do you do your Osotogari? Is that your next best throw?
If I'm struggling with a righty, then I'll start doing the kind of cross Osoto. But my favorite one is where I hit the close leg and then reach. So it's really quick. It's ding ding. Um, but it's hard to get it because on a with right on left, that's a really far leg to reach sometimes.
Hmm.
So it's preferred that I do my Uchimatas. Osoto tends to come in when I'm left on left because we're both kind of in that same position, and the leg I'm on Osoto is like so much closer.
Hmm.
So then it becomes a battle between either doing Osoto or countering Osoto and making sure that my Osoto doesn't get countered, because anything I can do, she can do.
Right.
So
So
that's where
how do you enter into your Osoto?
um
Do you
so
reach?
so the for the reach or the close.
Either one. Tell me both.
Okay, so for left on left is easier.
All right.
Um for me at least. Because an easy rule is I make sure my hip and my shoulder hit at the same time. So when I pull them in, both of these should be hitting at the same time. So that way I know my hip is in far enough. Because if it's like this, that means my butt's out and it's not going to work.
Mhm.
There's not really a case where your hip is going to hit first. So that's not really like a worry. So both at the same time. And then, you hook your leg and you just go as dedicated as you can, because otherwise you can get countered. And then in terms of the other one, that's a little bit more of a strength though, Soto, because you're hitting a fake ouchi, so that hopefully they're moving that leg back, and then you're hitting the Osoto, and then you either hop to meet them and throw, or you just pull the sucker to you and throw.
And what
So
is your upper body? What are your hands doing? Your upper body action.
for both, they're just, I mean, it's nice because it's really cut and dry for me. I'm keeping them out until I'm ready to attack, and then I bring it in all at once. So
Okay.
that hopefully it's like, oh, like kind of surprising a little bit,
Hmm.
because I've gotten really good at holding people out here.
Okay.
So I'm here, 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 here. I see an opening, go.
All
And then
right.
it's just pull. So it's like, it's nothing crazy, intricate.
Okay. So you're really just pulling straight into your body and
Yeah,
making body contact.
contact. Oh, yeah. Because the thing is, if you're not having contact, that means you're too far away, and it's probably not going to work.
Okay.
Because judo is all about kind of like confidence and bravery in that aspect, because it's really scary to get close to people.
Hmm. Do you do much ashiwaza?
um Mostly, I mostly practice koichis for the rare occasion I get to hit them. And I practice what Jason lovingly calls a sticker, because that's
Hmm.
helpful for setting up Uchimata for me.
Hmm.
Because I fight a lot of righties, because that's the majority of the judo population.
Right.
And just constantly hitting the Achilles and holding on to that foot in this very uncomfortable way for them,
Hmm.
just so that I can either take advantage of that opportunity, or they have to pull their leg out and step backwards, opens their hip so that I can do either an Uchimata or reach for the Osoto. Like, it creates a lot of opportunities. But generally, I'm using the Achiwaza. I was like, oh, yay, that's there, or creating options. That's not like my go-to for like an actual throw.
Okay. What would be some of your maneuvers to enter into your throws?
um,
The
I mean,
sticker is
man,
one.
yeah. I mean, man, I wish I was more creative, but generally I'm either just going into the throws, faking an ouchi so that I can get to the far leg.
Right.
Um, Mostly just trying to mess with the close leg so I can get to the far one.
Okay.
That is like the goal, because if depending on how far I can get that leg to step back, then I can turn them. I mean, the best case scenario, I could turn them lefty when
Right.
they're a righty, because they're weak in that position, and then I can do whatever I want, basically. Um, another option is, if they're a really square player or they play both sides,
Mhm.
um, that's kind of weirdly uncomfortable for me, even though square is kind of fantastic for Uchimata. But if for whatever reason they're really difficult to throw Uchimata, then I will hit a Koichi to kind of shove them back. And then
Mhm.
hopefully they like stumble a little bit. And then that's the only time generally that I do a like a drop sail. because that makes for a really good position there. But other than that, nothing crazy, honestly.
Okay. So what happens if you miss your drop Seoi?
Oh, turtle. Turtle and prey.
Okay, so drop Seoi gets you in a little trouble, right?
I mean, always been. I don't mind groundwork. We do groundwork
Okay,
a lot,
right.
thankfully, so it's not a particularly weak point for me. I prefer offensive more than defensive though, because
Hmm.
women are mean. Women are very mean, and most of the
Really?
time, oh my god! And most of the time, they're one of the favorite moves is a fake sankaku where they just bash the back of your head with their knee over and over, which is so fun. So defensive day was not very fun to partake in, but I can do it. It's just not
Mm,
fun. So
okay,
generally, you don't want to stand back up, certainly, because that opens
okay,
a whole can of worms.
yeah. You're predominantly a left player, but if you come out of some of your techniques on the left side, do you have something you can do to your opposite side?
um, Probably the only thing, and that's because there's opportunities for it on both sides for me. I do
Hmm.
a Koji Makakomi, so the one where you're diving here,
Uh-huh.
and that's probably the only throw that I'm comfortable doing both sides.
Okay.
Just because if I'm really annoyed with, especially like some of the men, like they're just super annoying to fight for me because they're big and they do me, you know.
Hmm. They just push you
Um,
out.
yeah. So if they're a righty that I'm struggling to do anything with, and they have that right leg forward, sometimes I'll just be like, haha, and I will pull as hard as I can here, and then just dive,
Okay.
and hope that does it.
And if you only get a wazari on the Koichimaki Komi, then what do you do for mat work after that?
Well, I keep holding on to the lapel hand, whichever one that is, so
Right.
that way I have some control of their shoulder. The sleeve hand, normally that's gone by then. So I'm trying to normally cross the hip that I have a hold of with this leg. So if I'm here
Hmm.
and I'm here, then normally it's a matter of holding this kind of. This is normally reaching for like the collar or behind the head, whatever I can kind of get a hold of, because I need both.
Hmm.
I need all my limbs working.
Hmm.
So here, and then immediately this is coming up to cross the hip and come over for like either a pin or whatever's next, depending on how they're reacting.
How they're moving.
Right. It's
Right.
completely, Newaza is super dependent on what they're doing. Because it's
Right.
not just, a flat person that's like, yes, do something. Like they're fighting back. So it's really
Right.
dependent.
So it's a reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction.
Yeah. So it's like, I have a plan, but if they do something like if they do something weird, like completely pull guard or something, then I have to completely change it.
Okay.
So
Do
luckily
you
that doesn't
get
happen very often.
in your Shiai competition? Do you get many opportunities for kansetsu waza,
um,
arm locks?
uh, oh yeah. I mean, because we normally separate out Newaza and Tachiwaza just because there's so many people normally in a normal year on the mat that doing Newaza during Tachiwaza can be kind of dangerous.
Hmm.
um, but in terms of Newaza, we're actively encouraged to do that, and I'm working on them. I should
Okay.
be good at arm bars. Um, Sometimes I can get them. I feel like I'm better at chokes
Okay.
personally, and that's because I have a. I'm trying. I'm working really hard, but it's really hard for me to remember to like hold my legs in while
Hmm.
you're doing armbar because like
Pulling
for
the
some
arm
reason
back.
these muscles are like kind of weak.
Right.
So I'm constantly trying to train being able to hold in. I also train with mostly men, so that it doesn't help because they have like massive arms, and I'm just like trying
Right.
to wriggle it free and hold my legs, and it's like a whole process. But
Hmm.
chokes are easier. Chokes are easier for sure, in my opinion.
Okay. So when you're in your international competition modes at these open tournaments, do
Yeah.
you have opportunities fighting against female opponents for arm lock opportunities? And have you won matches with arm locks and chokes?
Trying to think. A couple. Most of my
Mm,
matches I win are Tachiwaza.
okay.
My new what? The majority majority of my Newaza wins are stateside
Okay.
because by the time people get international, they're a lot better about leaving kind of their arms out because
They don't do that.
in general. I mean, sometimes
Yeah,
it's really
we're
rare.
right. We're making generalizations.
Right. Generally, no. You know, it's normally at the level below that, national, regional, state, like all of those levels that people are still learning kind of not to, when they land, not to go
Right.
or have one arm out or whatever, because then that's just free arm. Internationally, it's a lot harder than that. So not as many opportunities. Mostly, if I've won by Newaza, it's mostly pin. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's situational in what happened after the throw, and then is can I lead it to a pin, because it's hard to grab their arm sometimes.
Right. Right. How many international competitions do you go to annually?
Um, I normally try to aim for a minimum of once every other month at least.
Wow, it's a lot of travel.
Oh yeah, I've gotten really good at it. And the thing is, my flights normally suck, so it's like lot of travel. I've
Hmm.
had 18, 24, 28-hour layovers in
Hmm.
airports. Um, One of them had for some reason the airport in Mexico City that I had an 18-hour layover in had no chairs. So I was just and I got there at I think it was 11 p.m. and I had an 18-hour layover, so nothing was open. And you can't, there's no water fountains or anything because that's just a US mandated thing.
Right.
So it's not like I was just super thirsty, I remember, and I just remember having to sleep on top of my little carry-on. Then I was afraid people would like take it or something. And it was just a very cold tile floor. Yeah, that's how I spent 18 hours.
Yeah,
But yeah,
not
no,
good.
but yeah, I'm a pro at traveling at this point. I'm also fantastic at packing. I put everything into one backpack and that's it. That's all I take.
Okay. Including your judo gi.
Oh yeah. And my computer because I have to do school too.
And your computer. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's been quite a. How long have you been doing this international travel every other month or so?
I mean, that much travel relatively consistently, probably for the last, I mean, it kind of started 5 years ago, but it's gotten more consistent. And with the exception of like last year, I was competing more and more and more every year.
Okay.
So if I had my way, I would be competing at least once a month for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us how your life's routine changed in other ways since becoming on the elite athlete circuit? You're an
Oh,
expert at packing,
oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
and you can sleep in airports anywhere.
Oh, basically, I've definitely slept in a lot of airports.
Okay, and what other things have you noticed that have changed your life?
um, I've gotten to see a lot of countries, which is really cool. So a lot of countries, a lot of cultures. Like when I got to go to the World Championships in Hungary, uh, I got to the Budapest. It was really cool. There's a whole bunch of castles, and so I went hiking with some of my teammates up to a castle, and there was a party at the top, which was really I didn't expect. It's just ruined castle, which is really interesting. So you get to see really cool things. Some of the big tournaments have camps, like the German one and the French one, and
And
Japanese
you
ones.
attend those camps?
Yeah. Oh, and in South America they have camps. Yeah, and then it's just you get to fight. The women's and the men's camps fight a little differently. The men all like fight each other, and the women are a little bit more kind of in their own groups for some reason. But for the most part, you get to, meet really interesting people. I have a whole team in Poland that are like my besties that I get to see at a lot of tournaments, and I love them to death. And it's really cool because there's no other situation where I'd be best friends with the female Polish team.
That's
So yeah,
cool.
lots of friends. I got really efficient at doing schoolwork abroad. because that's a lot harder than you think it is, because I have to attend classes live when I can't do them in person. And that means sometimes a 5 p.m. Eastern class becomes a 2 a.m., Turkey time class.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting. And then some places don't have quite the Wi-Fi as others. So I've slowly been able to navigate all of that. So that's been a whole learning curve.
And what university are you going to, and what are you majoring in?
So I go to Harvard University. I am majoring in it's a bachelor's of liberal arts. It's kind of a really generic bachelor's.
Uh-huh.
I believe Harvard is very bougie, so they don't call anything. They have their own name for everything. So instead of a major, it's a concentration.
Okay,
And my
what?
concentration, my concentration is again a really broad one. It's in humanities, and
Okay.
that's because I really, really love. Basically, the umbrella term is communications, which I'm going to go and pursue a master's in.
Mhm.
And mostly my focus is social media analytics and management and all about how to connect with an audience, get a bigger audience, all that kind of stuff. I love it to death.
Okay, great. So, in addition to your academic career, how did you become an elite athlete, and how do others of your generation become elite athletes
Um,
on this very complicated circuit that you have to do?
yeah, I mean, I kind of accidentally fell into the right answer, I think. Um, and sometimes that happens. So technically, the route is you have to have national points. So you work up, so you do your local tournaments. You always want to do your local tournaments because the most important thing is number of matches you can get. The more matches you get in a year, the better you'll be. So do all your local tournaments, absolutely. All your state tournaments, regional tournaments, even if they're not, points nationally, don't care, do them. That way, by the time nationals rolls around or some of the other national point tournaments like Dallas and Presidents, you win them because you've been doing matches and working this whole time. Then you have points on the board. Once you have points on the board, you're allowed to compete in opens. And then and opens are minor tournaments on the circuit that give you points in the IGF. They're the lowest kind of rank point giving tournaments.
They're
And there's
held all
all
over
sorts.
the world.
Oh, they're all over. Yeah, I would recommend staying on the Western Hemisphere for a while. Although I've gotten to see some really cool places far away, they are really expensive to get to. And those are some long flights. So it's easier if you do. They didn't have it this year, but they'll probably have it next year. They normally have like the South American circuit, which is 3 opens in a row, 3 weekends in a row in South America, and they tend to be Argentina, Chile, and Peru. So those are great to attend. And then once you have you have to win at least one match. And I think once you have a 7th place or higher, then you can qualify to compete in Grand Prix and Grand Slams. Grand Slams, they only take the top 2 people. And then in Grand Prix, they only take the top 4. So I'm lucky that I tend to always be in the top 2. So I have kind of my pick of what I want. But some people are in very, very full divisions and that's constantly changing.
Mhm.
In terms of getting ready for all of those different levels, even if you are competing at Grand Slams and all of this kind of glamorous stuff, you still want to attend all the local stuff because matches are like the most important thing. And then finding a coach that's really suited to you, because everyone learns differently. My personal learning style is I have to have a coach on my butt all the time, because sometimes motivation is a very difficult thing for me because I wake up, everything hurts, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this today. But I know that if I don't go to practice, I'm going to say, hey, what happened? Nicole, why weren't you at practice? What happened? So it's nice. I have someone that's, really watching out for me and kind of encourage me to go along. And then I'm very kind of technical driven, and I'm lucky to also have a coach that's very technical driven.
So
So
you're very
really,
analytic in
for
your
sure,
training. Mhm.
yeah, because if I'm doing something, I want to do it right. Because if you do it wrong, you're more likely to get hurt too, which sets you back a whole bunch of time. So
Mhm.
it's really about kind of what is your learning style, finding the kind of perfect situation for that learning style, and then just throwing yourselves to the wolves as much as you can so that then you can kind of rise up through the ranks and go through that process. And then playing the point collecting game for 4 years to try to make an Olympic team is what I'm trying to do now. So we'll see. We're working on it.
Okay, and maybe you could explain a little bit about that point game. How do you get points in, I guess, in the Pan Am circuit to get a spot on the Olympic team?
So every tournament that the IJF hosts, that's either a Grand Slam, Grand Prix, or Open, as well as the team ones that you have to qualify for. So like Pan American Championships and the World Championships, or I guess Masters. Those all have the potential to have points. They have a chart, they update a lot on the IJF that details how many points you can get at each tournament. So some of them, the bigger ones, have participation points. So you weigh in, you get points. Basically, it's very little points, but it's like, yeah, you go points. At the Open, for example, if you win, you get 100 points. Which is exponentially greater at a Grand Prix. I think maybe it's at a Grand Slam. If you win one match, it's 200 points, for example. So and then the IGF kind of makes it difficult because they only let you have a certain amount of tournaments on your list that you have points in to be counted in total. So if you have 10,000 open wins, it's not going to be 10,000 times 100. It's going to be, I think it's 6 slots. So you'll have 600 points, even though you've won 10 opens, for example.
Right.
So when you start going through the tournaments, you don't normally worry about that until about when you're about 2 years away from the Olympics and you're in the third year, because points expire after 2 years, and after 1 year they get halved. So having nice, but getting first at a Grand Prix 4 years out from an Olympics is not super. It's not like it's cool, but it's not like the most beneficial. Right. It won't last you until the Olympics.
Right.
But it is helpful because then you get seeded. Because the more points you have, the higher you are in the seed. And the way the bracketing works, if you are in the top 8 for a tournament, you tend to get a bye, which is a free win into the next round.
Right.
And you tend to get the bottom seeds at the bottom, which are easier, although not always, because you get someone that hasn't competed in a long time and they're amazing and they just don't have points. Right. So it's an interesting point strategy thing that's all dependent on what time of year it is and the season, basically. So are the planets aligned? Do you get a good first match, or are you 0-1? So
it's complicated.
Very.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I thought we'd finish by opening it up to the audience for some questions, if there are any more questions. Gentlemen, do you want to ask any questions on anything we haven't covered? Well, Nicole, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I think it's been very, very informative, and I wish you the best in accumulating whatever complex points you need to make the Olympics.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Good luck.
I will be doing my best to strategize what that looks like.
That's good. Okay. Good luck. And don't forget to send me the paper.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Take care. Be safe. Wear a mask.
Always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.